what are you doing?
Bro, did you just assume my gender?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misgender you.
You're such a hellophone. Get out.
Now, we dropped this video over on Famous News, and it brought in over 250,000 views. Take a look. Yeah, this has got to be the biggest news story of the week, and for MrBeast's team of the decade. Here we go. Before Chris Tyson would become synonymous with YouTube superstar MrBeast, and then surprising their fan base with the news that they were undergoing hormone replacement therapy, well, content creator Chris Tyson was born on July 1st, 1996, in Greenville, North Carolina. And just for those who are confused, he was in fact born a male, right? Obviously. Now, during a childhood spent growing up in their hometown, well, Chris, he would meet Jimmy Donaldson, aka the future MrBeast, and the two youngsters, well, they immediately hit it off, becoming fast friends. In fact, when Jimmy would later launch his very first YouTube channel, known at the time as MrBeast 6000, well, it was while both of them were students at the Greenville Christian Academy. And guess what? Well, Chris was the very first person to ever subscribe to Jimmy's stuff. Now, when asked by Business Insider about this crucial moment in their early life, well, Chris, he told the media outlet, "I remember the day he created it, me and him were hanging out at his house. I made sure I was the first person subscribed when he made it." From that point forward, well, Chris, he would become MrBeast's most trusted collaborator, helping him film numerous videos. Now, once Chris moved off to college, well, they continued to assist Jimmy any way they could, while splitting time between classes and working part-time at Best Buy. Eventually, however, well, Chris, he was faced with an important decision. Now, shortly after finishing college and earning an entry-level job at the organization they had interned at, well, Jimmy approached his childhood best friend and asked, "Hey, I know you worked really hard for that job, but can you quit it and just come work for me?" Now, Tyson didn't have to think about it for long. They said yes to their longtime friend and haven't regretted the decision for a minute since. Now, when Chris first officially joined MrBeast full-time, well, the channel only had around 700,000 subscribers. Now, that's certainly a decent-sized number, no doubt about it, but it pales in comparison to where they are today. Now, 7 years later, after joining Jimmy on his YouTube journey, well, Donaldson and Chris would have earned over 30 million subscribers on YouTube, putting the channel they built together in the upper echelon of social media and content creation accomplishments. Now, MrBeast went through a particularly substantial period of growth in 2018 after uploading a video in which he orders water at a series of different restaurants before leaving a tip upwards of $10,000. Now, it didn't take long for media outlet Pix11 News and Inside Edition to pick up on that story and run with it, which led to more exposure than ever before, and this industrious duo, they were off to the races. Now, Chris, he told Business Insider a few years later, "That's when it really became real for us, that this had the potential to blow up like it did." It was Jimmy's empire continued to grow while he recruited more and more friends to help him out, probably because the first time worked out so well with Chris. Now, since then, Chris and the rest of these friends, well, they become massively popular personalities in their own right and appear in many of MrBeast's videos. Now, according to Chris, while working for MrBeast is an exciting experience, Jimmy, well, he often takes his team out on travel sprees where they travel the world to film these videos. Over the course of their careers together, well, Chris and Jimmy, they've traveled all over the globe, but Chris' all-time favorite trip was when they once spent 24 hours in the California sand dunes, only to stumble into a production crew who were busy filming Jumanji 2. Now, if that doesn't give you an idea of how hectic their life schedule can be, well, then maybe this will give you a better one. Now, according to Chris, well, the team, they often have days where they wake up at 6 a.m. just to record some videos. That being said, he's also willing to admit that there are nearly just as many days when they don't have to wake up until closer to 1. Now, Chris might have been the first person to join the team, but he's one of over 24 employees, now including multiple video editors and writers, all of whom collaborate together on MrBeast content ideas from inception to completion. And it's not unusual for Chris to be in charge of a team of half a dozen cameras recording for 24 hours straight with as much as 80 hours of footage to comb through to then edit the final product. Now, of course, sometimes an idea, it sounds better on paper than it necessarily does in reality. Like that time Chris and Jimmy, they came up with an idea to build their very own catapult to make a zoo out of animal crackers and goldfish, both of which failed so spectacularly that, well, it never made it to camera. Now, having to scrap video ideas that had really cost upwards of $60,000, well, it taught them that they needed to iron out their thought process when it comes to creating content. But even with all the incredible success they found since then, well, Tyson is still shocked at what they've accomplished together. He told Business Insider, "Never in a million years would I think it would get to this point. It's crazy for us to think that this is just the beginning of everything. Now, of course, becoming a social media maven and all-around content creator king isn't the only process Chris is still in the beginning stages of. Now, after carving out a life for themselves that they never dreamt possible, well, Chris, he married their longtime sweetheart, Katie Tyson, in 2018, and eventually they welcomed their first child, a son named Tucker, 2 years later. Now, right around the same time that their family was expanding came the somewhat surprising news that Chris had concluded that he was in fact bisexual. Now, during the course of this revelation, well, Chris also revealed that when they were only 16 years old, well, they came out to the people closest to them. Unfortunately, this news, it was not well received at that time, and since then, however, well, there's been a major change. Now, just a few days ago, MrBeast's longtime co-star, he shared a post revealing that they were undergoing hormone replacement therapy after someone online inquired as to why their physical appearance, well, it had shifted so dramatically in recent months. Recognized as part of gender-affirming treatment, feminizing hormone replacement therapy, well, it's when a doctor gives a patient hormone medication to lessen male physical characteristics and increase the female ones. Now, according to Chris, well, they've been undergoing HRT for just 2 months at this point, and it's already saved their life. In fact, this dramatic increase in their overall happiness, well, it's left them at a loss as to why so many other people, well, they're often classified for making informed decisions about their own bodies. And while Chris was originally apprehensive to share their HRT journey with the rest of the world, well, witnessing firsthand the conversations they've helped start by doing so, well, it's made the whole ordeal worth it. As for how MrBeast responded to this dramatic lifestyle change, and one of his most trusted colleagues and best friends, well, he couldn't be happier and more supportive. He sent out his well wishes while also defending Chris from internet trolls, questioning whether or not they will be able to be a respectable father. Not willing to let others fight their battles for them, well, Chris also defended the relationship with their son by informing us that nothing has changed and that Tucker, well, he still spends as much time with Chris as possible. Now, that being said, well, according to Chris, well, his marriage is effectively over. Now, the last time either one of them posted an image of each other online was when Katie did so on her Instagram page back in Christmas of 2021. Now, since then, a few weeks ago, well, Chris confirmed through social media that the couple, well, they had separated and were in the process of finalizing things, but that it would still take some time to iron everything out. Now, it's quite possible that they're still trying to figure out the role they will have in one another's lives. You know, moving forward through this, it might be a little complicated, especially when Chris, well, he's still got to complete this journey. Now, in the meantime, well, that'll bring the end of this episode of, well, Chris Tyson before they are famous, because wow, this one's a doozy. We went viral on TikTok, we went viral on YouTube Shorts, we're dropping it on Snapchat, and a lot of people are saying some very horrific things. Regardless, I got a job to do to tell you who this man is and his rise to fame. I do have a question for you guys before I leave you. What's the most shocking revelation your long-term partner has ever surprised you with? My God. Oh, I'm not sharing with you. I usually share, but in this one, I'm gonna keep that to myself. You guys sound off in the comments down below if you feel like doing so. Also, we like to drop up previously uploaded videos at the back end of a new upload. So enjoy this video on MrBeast my editors have chosen for you, and I'll see you guys in that video. Before becoming one of the most popular LGBTQ+ creators on all of TikTok with more than 10 million followers, eagerly anticipating each new installment of her Days of Girlhood series, well, trans influencer and content creator Dylan Mulvaney, well, they were born on December 29th, 1996 in San Diego, California, where she began life as a baby boy born to James and Donna Mulvaney. In point of fact, well, the Mulvaneys, they are a rather well-connected family that have been synonymous with the San Diego area for a while now. Now, Dylan's grandfather, James Mulvaney Sr., he was a lawyer and investment banker and former president of the San Diego Padres baseball team. Now, James's other job would see him act as a banker and a businessman for the controversial financier and industrialist Arnold Smith. Now, that's one of Richard Nixon's earliest supporters, as well as a friend to mobsters like Mo Dalitz. Meanwhile, Dylan's father, James Jr., well, he would grow up to become a San Diego area philanthropist known for baking and handing out cookies to strangers for free. So I can see the correlation on how things changed, right? Now, and as it turns out, well, after Dylan Mulvaney was born, well, her father was suffering from drug and alcohol abuse. Now, wanting to sober up for his new child, well, James, he gave up narcotics and he began baking cookies as a means to keep himself occupied while staying clean. And now he's known all around the city as the Cookie Man. With her dad struggling for the first few years of her life, well, Dylan didn't exactly have an open or vulnerable role model in her life as a child, which, needless to say, well, made the fact that she identified as a girl and instead of a boy, well, hard to reconcile. Instead, Dylan suppressed these feelings as best she could and grew up a self-described theater kid, eventually finding her calling when she began attending the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music for musical theater. When she wasn't learning how to sing, dance, and entertain, Dylan also worked behind the counter at a froyo store, alongside a whole host of other retail jobs that included Lush, as well as a brand Melville. But no matter how much she loved fashion and a little good old-fashioned retail therapy, well, it was performing on stage that always made Dylan feel the most complete. Now, she once told Girl Boss that when it came to the Cincinnati Conservatory, there I learned how to be confident. I think what's so great about having a degree like musical theater is it prepared me to perform. And that's what TikTok really is. It's performance in a way. As much as you're playing yourself, you're still giving the energy to a character. Now, following her graduation from the conservatory, Dylan would almost immediately find herself auditioning for TV and theater roles in San Diego, but she was quickly confronted by the realization that producers were only willing to hire her for male roles, like when she was brought in as a new cast member for the Broadway musical, The Book of Mormon. Now, at first, Dylan wound up hiding away much of her own identity so that she could be considered for opportunities in the industry, but after appearing on series like The Ellen DeGeneres Show, as well as The Price is Right, the pandemic would bring her production of The Book of Mormon to a close and leave Dylan with more questions than answers. When the pandemic hit in 2020, Dylan Mulvaney, she was still a member of The Book of Mormon on Broadway, but only a few weeks later, she found herself jobless and back at home with her parents, in a sense that, well, it was the first time since she was little that she really had the time to ask herself, who are you without acting and without playing a boy part? Now, when Dylan got down to thinking about these tough questions, well, she was shocked to discover that she was finished living her life as a boy. Now, without knowing exactly what would happen next, well, she downloaded TikTok and started producing comedy-style clips that included throwing a non-binary gender reveal party for herself.
I'm Dylan. Today is my birthday and I'm throwing a gender reveal party. And no, I'm not pregnant. It's for myself. I'm non-binary.
Now, as she continued to grow and entertain her audience throughout the next year or so, well, Dylan also discovered more truths about herself. For instance, she realized that the more she distanced herself from being a boy, well, the more she embraced her feelings of femininity. And while she originally believed that she might be non-binary, in actual fact, she's a trans woman. When she came out as such, well, Dylan's TikTok feed, it exploded in popularity, thanks in large part to a series she created titled Days of Girlhood. Now, while many online have rallied around Dylan's content since she first broke through in early 2022, well, there are some people out there who would like to watch her fail, and it might not be who you'd necessarily expect. Take fellow trans woman Caitlyn Jenner, for instance, who has referred to Dylan in the past as an absurdity and accused her of exposing too much of herself in public. What? Now, that same month, well, Dylan would meet with President Joe Biden for an interview in which the two discussed trans rights, with the president telling Mulvaney that, well, no state should have the right to block transgender people's access to healthcare. Then 2 months later, on December 16, 2022, well, Dylan announced in triumphant fashion that it was surgery day and shared footage of herself getting dropped off at a medical center to undergo facial feminization surgery. Now, for those of you who don't know, well, FFS, it encompasses a broad range of procedures that changes the shape of the face to make it look more feminine. Now, examples include having your hairline moved to create a smaller forehead, lips and cheekbones being augmented, as well as jaws and chins being reshaped and resized. Now, after sharing a number of images of her recovery from her hospital bed in late January of 2023, well, Dylan would finally introduce to the rest of the world her brand new face. Now, just a few short weeks later, well, Dylan's 365-day journey towards becoming a woman, well, would culminate with a live show in New York City that stood as a tribute to everything she'd accomplished and endured. But Dylan's celebration was still only just getting started. Now, since becoming one of the LGBTQ+'s largest pop culture icons, well, Dylan Mulvaney has had to deal with both the good and the bad. Now, on the negative side of things, well, her dating life, it isn't moving quite as quickly as she once hoped it might. On the opposite side of things is how much incredible bank she's earning. Now, she explained how her fortunes have turned to People magazine, where she told them, "I struggled for so long in having the entertainment industry accept me and have a place for me. Now, because the internet and all these followers have decided to love me, it's creating these opportunities that I didn't have before." Nonetheless, that comedic video appears to have rallied up anti-trans outrage across right-wing media groups, as well as musicians like Kid Rock TikTok who took such exceptions to this new design that he released a video of himself shooting multiple Bud Light beer cans while wearing what else? Well, a MAGA hat. Now, the owners of Bud Light, they have promised to continue working with influencers like Dylan, telling the folks at BuzzFeed News they're doing so to authentically connect with audiences across various demographics. Now, meanwhile, other brands like Kate Spade, MAC, Neutrogena, and others, well, they have also shown no qualms supporting Dylan and connecting with her millions of followers in the process. As for what might come next in Dylan's career, well, she's currently in the process of pitching a talk show while also writing a couple different books. She'll, of course, continue making as much social media content as she can, but her other commitments might mean that it's, well, no longer on a daily basis. Now, if the talk show doesn't turn into a reality, well, she also considered turning Days of Girlhood into a podcast or a potential script rom-com series with an early 2000s vibe. Now, until that happens, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see where Dylan Mulvaney's career takes her. After all, this has been her before they're famous. Thanks for checking out this video, guys. Before I leave you guys, I have a question for you. What's the angriest a big name brand has ever made you, and what did they do? Was it Kendall Jenner and Pepsi? Was it Mulvaney here with Bud Light? Let me know yours in the comments down below.